Have you ever wondered why so many marriages, which begin with love, passion, and dreams of forever, eventually fall into silence, disappointment, or even resentment? Have you ever felt that despite choosing your partner freely, something deeper, something invisible, was pulling the strings of your heart? And have you ever questioned if the love you are living is truly yours, or just a replay of wounds and patterns written long before you even knew what love was? These questions may feel unsettling, but they are exactly the doorway into one of the most profound truths Carl Jung revealed about human relationships. What we call love, what we call marriage, is often not as free as we think. It is not simply the meeting of two hearts. Beneath the beauty and the vows, there is a powerful unconscious script at work, one that quietly shapes who we are drawn to, who we marry, and why so many of us repeat the same painful stories again and again. Imagine for a moment, a man grows up in a home where his father left, or where love was unstable, where affection was given one day and withdrawn the next. Years later, when he stands at the altar, does he truly choose his partner freely? Or is some invisible hand of the past guiding his choice? Without realizing it, he may be pulled towards someone who recreates that very instability, not because he wants pain, but because his soul seeks what feels familiar. This is the great paradox of the unconscious. We do not seek happiness, we seek recognition, even if that recognition comes through suffering. Marriage, in Jung's eyes, is not just two people coming together. It is also the union of their shadows, their wounds, their unfinished childhood stories. We think we are marrying a person, but often we are marrying a reflection of our past. We think we are choosing freely, but in truth, our wounds are choosing for us. And this is why so many couples find themselves stuck in cycles they cannot explain. Why do we argue about the same things? Why do we feel the same disappointments, even with different partners? Why are we drawn again and again to what we know will hurt us? Because deep down, the psyche is not searching for love. It is searching for what it already knows. And until we bring those unconscious patterns into the light, we are destined to repeat them. But here is the hopeful truth. Once you begin to see this hidden machinery, you can step outside of it. You can stop being a prisoner of old wounds and begin to choose differently. You can transform marriage from a replay of the past into a conscious union built in the present. And that is what this journey is about. Stay with me, because in the next part, we will uncover one of the most powerful forces in love and marriage. Katosain to jiu asasei in shiu adhu kaseis one chain entuan. The illusion that makes us fall in love with a fantasy instead of a person, and the reason why the first spark of passion can so quickly turn into disappointment. Once you see it, you will never look at love the same way again. And later in this series, we will go even deeper into the hidden addictions to pain that silently shape our relationships, and the path Jung believed could set us free. This is not just about understanding love. It is about reclaiming your freedom, breaking the cycle of repetition, and discovering what it means to love consciously, not blindly. And if you stay with me through this journey, you will begin to see not only your relationships, but your entire life with new eyes. Think back to the very first time you fell in love. Can you recall that breathtaking moment when your heart seemed to recognize someone instantly, when you felt certain that this person was the missing piece you had been waiting for? The rush was so strong, it felt like destiny itself had placed them in your path. But was it really fate? Or was it something else entirely? Carl Jung believed that what we often call love, especially in those electrifying early stages, is not love at all. It is projection. When a man meets a woman, he does not always see her as she truly is. Instead, he sees the hidden feminine side of his own psyche, what Jung called the anima, projected onto her like a film cast upon a screen. And the same is true for women, who project their inner animus, the hidden masculine within them, onto the men they fall for. This means that much of what pulls us so powerfully toward another person is not about them, but about us. We fall in love with the mirror they hold up to our unconscious, with the fantasy our mind has painted on their face. Imagine a man who has always felt unseen. When he meets a woman who, for one fleeting moment, looks at him with deep attention, he may instantly project onto her the role of savior, convinced she is the one who will finally make him whole. Or imagine a woman who grew up longing for a father's presence. When she meets a strong, confident man, she may unconsciously dress him in the robes of everything she once lacked, believing he will heal the empty spaces inside her. But the truth is far more sobering. The person in front of us has not magically become all these things. They are still themselves, imperfect, flawed, layered with their own struggles and contradictions. The overwhelming magic we feel in those early days of love is not proof of destiny. It is our unconscious painting its longing onto someone else. And when time strips away the paint, the illusion cracks, the perfect image dissolves, and disappointment takes its place. This is why so many relationships begin in fire and end in ashes. Not because the other betrayed us, but because the image we were in love with was never real. We were never loving them. We were loving our own fantasy. And yet, Jung did not see this as hopeless. He saw projection as a mirror, a chance to learn. If you dare to look at what you projected, you will discover something hidden within yourself. The qualities you adored in another often reveal the qualities you're longing to awaken in your own soul. And the traits that irritate you, the shadows you resent in them, often reflect the parts of yourself you are not ready to face. So the next time you are struck by that irresistible spark, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, do I truly love this person as they are, or do I love the story I have written on them? This single question can open the door to a new kind of love, one built on truth instead of illusion. But projection is only the beginning of the story, because once we see through the illusion, we often stumble into something even darker, the strange addiction to pain that keeps us bound to relationships that hurt us. Why is it that so many of us are drawn not to peace, but to chaos, not to calm, but to conflict? Why does suffering so often masquerade as passion? Stay with me, because what comes next may reveal why heartbreak feels so magnetic, why drama feels alive, and why so many people remain in toxic love even when they know better. And once you see it, you may never fall into the same trap again. We often tell ourselves that all we want in love is peace, happiness, and security. Yet if you look closely at the relationships around you, and perhaps even within your own life, you might notice something unsettling. So many people are irresistibly drawn not to peace, but to pain. They call it passion. They call it chemistry. They even call it love. But what if it is something else? Jung believed that the human psyche does not simply seek joy. It seeks what is familiar. And if pain was familiar in your childhood, then pain will feel strangely like home in adulthood. This is why people who grew up in chaotic households often find themselves unable to rest in calm love. Stability feels foreign, almost suffocating. But chaos, drama, and heartbreak, they feel alive. Think of the person who always finds themselves in the arms of partners who hurt them. Outsiders may shake their heads and ask, why don't they just leave? But inside, a quiet whisper repeats, this is what love feels like. This is what I know. They are not choosing pain out of weakness. They are addicted to the familiarity of it. Pain has become the rhythm of their heartbeat. And there is something intoxicating about this cycle. The tension of conflict, the rush of reconciliation, the burning intensity of jealousy or fear. It feels powerful, like a storm raging through the soul. For many, that storm becomes their proof of love. Without it, they feel empty, as though something essential is missing. Have you ever noticed how silence can feel unbearable after years of conflict? How calm can feel like boredom when your heart has been trained to beat to the rhythm of chaos? That is not peace. That is withdrawal. Like any addict deprived of their drug, the psyche craves the storm even while it drowns in it. Jung warned us about this hidden craving, this compulsion to repeat suffering. It is not because we want to hurt. It is because deep inside we confuse hurt with life itself. The more painful the relationship, the more real it seems to feel. And so many people mistake suffering for depth, mistaking drama for intimacy, mistaking obsession for love. But if you are brave enough to look closely, you may recognize the trap. That cycle of pain you call love is not love at all. It is a wound replaying itself, begging to be healed. It is the unconscious trying over and over again to resolve what was never resolved. And the tragedy is that without awareness, you will keep choosing the same kind of partner, the same kind of heartbreak, the same kind of storm, believing that this time, perhaps, the ending will be different. The question then is simple but profound. Are you truly in love, or are you addicted to pain? Are you choosing someone because they nourish your soul, or because they recreate the suffering you once mistook for affection? And here lies the turning point. For if you can see this truth, if you can recognize your craving for pain, then you can begin the work of stepping out of it. You can begin to choose differently, to create relationships not out of addiction, but out of freedom. Yet, knowing this is not enough. To break free requires a deeper journey, one Jung called individuation, the process of facing your shadow, reclaiming the parts of yourself you've projected, and becoming whole in your own right. Only then can love stop being a battlefield and start becoming a sanctuary. Stay with me, because what comes next is not just an idea, but a path, a way to finally escape these invisible prisons of the heart and walk toward a love that is real, a freedom that is lasting, and a life where peace no longer feels like emptiness, but like home. When we finally see the trap of projection and recognize the addiction to pain that keeps us chained to old wounds, the next question becomes inevitable. How do we break free? How do we step out of these invisible prisons of the soul and into a life and love that feel real? Jung's answer was individuation, the slow, courageous, lifelong work of becoming whole. Individuation is not about perfection. It is not about becoming someone polished, flawless, or saintly. It is about honesty, the raw, unflinching honesty of meeting yourself as you truly are. To individuate means to gather back all the parts of yourself you have disowned, the anger you buried because you were told anger is ugly, the grief you silenced because no one wanted to hear it, the fear you hid behind a smile because fear was called weakness. Every one of those exiled emotions is still alive within you, waiting to be seen, waiting to be reclaimed. Most people spend their lives running from these shadows, hoping someone else will rescue them from the darkness. But Jung insisted that no partner, no marriage, no love can ever do that for you. If you have abandoned parts of yourself, you will always seek them in others. You will keep projecting, keep repeating, keep choosing what hurts you until the day you finally turn inward and say, I will not abandon you again. I will sit with you now. I will carry you home. Think of a woman who has always believed she is unworthy of love. Each time she enters a relationship, she unconsciously chooses men who neglect her, betray her, or diminish her value. She thinks she is unlucky in love, but in truth, she is reenacting the wound of her own self-abandonment. Individuation for her begins not with finding the right man, but with learning to see her own worth, with standing before the mirror and daring to believe, "I am enough." Or picture a man who has spent his life suppressing his emotions because he was told as a child that boys don't cry. He grows up hardened, unable to express tenderness, unable to receive it. In every marriage, he feels misunderstood, distant, cut off. His wife cannot reach him not because she doesn't try, but because he cannot reach himself. For him, individuation means opening the door to his own heart, allowing himself to weep, to soften, to become whole again by reclaiming the part of his soul he locked away. This journey is not easy. It is often terrifying. To individuate is to walk into the cave of your own being and light a torch where no one else can follow. It means sitting in silence with the grief you avoided for years. It means feeling the rage you swallowed until it soured inside you. It means admitting that the love you begged from others was always the love you withheld from yourself. And yet, paradoxically, this is the very journey that sets you free. Because the more you reclaim, the less desperate you become. The more you learn to give yourself, the less you demand from others. You no longer need your partner to heal your wounds, because you have begun the work of healing them yourself. And in that moment, love transforms. It shifts from a contract of need to a meeting of freedom. Jung once wrote that marriage without individuation is nothing more than two shadows clinging to each other. But when two individuated people come together, marriage becomes something sacred, not a repetition of wounds, not a desperate attempt to complete what is missing, but a conscious choice to share fullness. No longer two half-souls in search of completion, but two whole beings walking side by side. Can you imagine what that would feel like? To love someone not because they fill your emptiness, but because together you expand the fullness you already carry. To look into their eyes and see not your missing pieces, but another soul who has dared to walk their own path of self-discovery. That kind of love doesn't burn out with time, because it is not built on illusion. It is not fragile, because it is not born of need. It is strong, because it is born of freedom. And yet, this kind of union demands the hardest work: to stop chasing the fantasy, to stop blaming the other, and to begin the slow, sacred task of meeting yourself. To sit with the shadow, to embrace the orphaned parts of your soul, to claim the power you once gave away. It is the work of becoming who you were meant to be all along. This is individuation, not the end of love, but the rebirth of it. Not the denial of marriage, but its transformation. And when you step onto this path, you begin to understand what freedom truly means, not the absence of commitment, but the presence of wholeness. Stay with me, because from here, one final question remains. Once you have begun to reclaim yourself, what does it truly mean to love another person consciously? How do you choose love with open eyes, not through illusion, not through addiction, but through freedom? That is where we are headed next. And if these ideas still feel distant, let us bring them closer into the reality of everyday life. Think of the woman who has always been the good daughter, praised when she obeyed, scolded when she spoke up. As an adult, she marries a man who unconsciously repeats that pattern. He loves her when she's quiet, withdraws when she expresses her needs. She tells herself this is love, but in truth, she has carried the voice of her childhood into her marriage. Her shadow is the silenced self, and individuation for her means finding her voice again, daring to speak her truth, even if it risks conflict, even if it means someone walks away. Or imagine the man who grew up in a family where achievement was everything. His worth was measured by grades, by trophies, by success. Now, as a husband, he is constantly chasing promotions, status, wealth. He thinks he is building a future for his family, but deep down, he is still the little boy begging for his father's approval. And no matter how much he earns, it never feels enough. Individuation for him means breaking that chain, looking inward, and asking, who am I without the applause? Who am I if I stop running? Consider the young professional who keeps changing jobs, always telling herself, this place doesn't fit me. Each time she hopes the next company will finally feel right. Yet in every office the same story repeats. She feels overlooked, undervalued, invisible. What she does not see is that the workplace is only the stage. The real script comes from a childhood where her achievements were ignored, where love had to be earned. Until she faces that wound, she will keep repeating the same drama on every stage she walks onto. And then there is the man who cannot stop choosing partners who cheat. Every time he says, never again. Next time, I'll be smarter. Yet again and again, he finds himself betrayed. What he cannot yet admit is that deep inside, he grew up with betrayal. A parent who promised safety but broke it. His psyche has mistaken betrayal for love itself. Individuation for him means facing the pain he buried long ago, forgiving the part of himself that still longs for the parent who failed him, and finally refusing to let that wound dictate the rest of his life. These are not rare stories. They are the invisible threads woven through countless marriages, careers, and friendships. They explain why some people feel trapped in the same arguments with different partners, why they repeat the same heartbreak with different faces, why no amount of external change seems to fix the inner emptiness. And this is why Jung insisted, until you bring your unconscious patterns into the light, you will live them as fate. You will think life is punishing you, when in truth, it is your shadow calling you back. The pain is not random. It is the part of you that you abandoned, demanding to be seen. So ask yourself, in your own life, what patterns keep repeating? Do you keep ending up with controlling partners because you have not yet faced the part of you that fears freedom? Do you keep seeking admiration because you have not yet learned to admire yourself? Do you keep running from loneliness only to end up lonelier than before because you have not yet made peace with your own company? Individuation is the invitation to stop running, to stop searching for healing in someone else's arms, someone else's approval, someone else's promises. It is the call to return home to yourself, to gather every part of you that you exiled and to stand whole again. And imagine, for a moment, what life could feel like on the other side. Imagine waking up and no longer needing to beg for validation because you have already given it to yourself. Imagine being able to say no without fear, to walk away from a toxic love without hesitation, to choose peace without mistaking it for boredom. Imagine meeting another person, not to complete you, but to walk beside you. Two souls free, two hearts whole. That is the promise of individuation. It does not erase pain, but it transforms it. It does not guarantee happiness, but it gives you freedom. And from that freedom, a different kind of love is born. One that is conscious, steady, and real. But this leads us to one final question. Once we have begun this journey inward, how do we bring it outward? How do we love another person without illusion, without addiction, without projection, with clear eyes and a free heart? That is the doorway we are about to open. So what does love look like once we have begun to walk this inner path? What happens when we stop chasing illusions? When we no longer confuse pain with passion? When we are no longer prisoners of our shadows? For the first time, love can be chosen consciously. To love consciously means to look at another person with clear eyes, not through the haze of projection. It means to see them as they are, not as the savior of your wounds, not as the fulfillment of your fantasies, but as a fellow traveler on the same uncertain road. It means no longer asking, "What can you give me to heal me?" But instead, how can we walk side by side, two whole beings supporting each other's growth? Imagine two people who have done this work. When conflict arises, they do not collapse into blame. They pause, they ask, "What part of this belongs to me? What old wound has been stirred?" Instead of turning their partner into an enemy, they use the moment as a mirror, a chance to know themselves more deeply. Or picture a couple who once would have drowned in drama. But now, when emotions surge, they choose dialogue instead of silence, presence instead of withdrawal. They are no longer addicted to the storm, so they do not need to destroy each other to feel alive. Their aliveness now comes from building something steady, something sacred. This kind of love is quieter than the fiery intoxication of projection, but it is deeper. It does not fade when the fantasy dissolves, because it was never built on fantasy in the first place. It grows with time, like roots deepening in the earth, because it is nourished by truth. Ask yourself, what would it feel like to be in such a love? A love where you can speak your truth without fear, where you can walk away from chaos without regret, where you are not half a soul begging for completion, but a whole being meeting another whole being. Would that not be worth more than the fleeting intoxication of illusions? And so the circle closes. At the beginning, we asked whether marriage was truly a free choice or an unconscious repetition of old wounds. We have traveled through projection, through the addiction to pain, through the shadows that shape us. We have seen how individuation can set us free, and now we arrive at the heart of it. Love becomes real only when it's chosen consciously. This is not an easy path. It demands honesty, courage, and the willingness to meet yourself. But it is the only path that leads to freedom. And when you walk it, marriage is no longer a prison of the past. It becomes a sanctuary for the future. Love is no longer the echo of old wounds. It becomes the meeting of two souls who have faced their shadows and come out whole. So I leave you with this. In your own life, are you ready to choose love with clear eyes? Are you ready to stop repeating, to stop projecting, to stop confusing pain with passion, and instead step into a love that is conscious, steady, and free? Stay with me, because this is only the beginning. In the videos to come, we will go even deeper into Jung's wisdom, into the mysteries of the shadow, the anima and animus, the hidden forces that shape our choices. And perhaps along the way, you'll discover not only how to love another, but how to finally love yourself.